Chapter 8:11. That kind of scene made the audience burst into another wave of jubilation. This time, the cheers were much more intense than before. Some people could not help but clench the clothes in front of their chests. Their eyes were filled with excitement. Because right now, they couldn't help but think of the same name, Spade Z. After the 2v2, it's time for the team battle. The shoutcaster adjusted the microphone. I believe the audience is just like me, anticipating someone's appearance. That's right, other than Chin Mo, there's another person who has dominated the esports scene this year. Spade Z, the FC king from Zone C, let's see what kind of excitement he will bring us today. The other person laughed. Brother, I know you're a fan of Spade Z, but this is a team battle. Don't forget that Grand Realm has sent out their strongest lineup. Even with Chin Mo and Spade Z, it won't be safe. There are still newbies in Supreme Alliance. This 5v5 will be a tough fight for them. I forgot about this prerequisite. The commentator slapped his forehead lightly. His partner analyzed the data. Besides, I believe Grand Realm has realized that even though no one has been able to escape from Chin Mo's 3000 knife cutting, in order to execute the 3000 knife cutting, the members can't be too weak. Otherwise, it would be difficult for Chin Mo no matter how good he is at fighting. Isn't there still Spade Z? One person isn't enough, there has to be at least two. Coco is fine, but as you can see, Coco's skills have deteriorated over the past year. This is a bottleneck that every professional player will face. Why did the club organize a newcomer competition before the start of the competition? It was because Fomi noticed that the overall standard of the Supreme Alliance was declining and they needed fresh blood. It could only be said that Spade Z came at the wrong time. If he had appeared a year earlier, Coco would still be at his peak and this competition wouldn't have been so difficult. Look, Grand Realm has already made adjustments to their lineup in response to Supreme Alliance's problems. Yan Yixiao has always been a good strategist, so Supreme Alliance's response is crucial. Yan Yixiao stood up after hearing the shoutcaster's words. He glanced at the four people behind him. Let's go with the original plan. Grand Realm's members all had average looks, but their skills were obvious to all. Actually, it was simple. In this round, as long as they suppressed Almighty Chin and took a few more Supreme Alliance newbies' heads, Spade Z and the others could work together to deal with them. In terms of strategy, Grand Realm was not wrong. No matter which team faced the Supreme Alliance, as long as it was a team battle, they would look for Yao Yao and Feng Shang first. Honestly, those who hadn't followed Supreme Alliance's battles didn't recognize them at all. It was inevitable that there would be discussions. Newbie? She was still as eye-catching as ever. Moreover, Chin Mo was standing at the front. He didn't seem to hear the shoutcaster's words. His chiseled and handsome face exuded a unique aura of abstinence. The moment he glanced up, his fans were excited. Bo Jiu arched a brow. As expected of an almighty, the effect of his good looks was obvious. Then, he heard a voice by his ear. The speaker's tone was very calm. You've been looking at the audience area since just now. What are you looking at? Bo Jiu's fingers paused. Her smile didn't change. I'm looking at the passion of the audience. Chin Mo tilted his head and glanced at her. Bo Jiu's lips curved upwards. She didn't avoid his deep gaze. Chin Mo retracted his gaze and didn't say anything else. He held onto her wrist and walked towards the arena. He probably didn't see Hoshino. Bo Jiu had a plan, but she knew she had to be more careful when she moved. After all, the Almighty's observation skills were too sharp. Bo Jiu lowered her head and glanced at the hand holding onto her wrist. Her lips curved upwards. That scene was clearly seen by all the fangirls present. Why does it feel like my Big Spade's mood has improved? I can only say that my Big Spade is too loyal, smiling so handsomely after being touched by the Almighty. This candy caught me off guard. Take a picture, hurry up and take a picture. Under the camera, all the team members were sitting in their seats in a row. Supreme Alliance's uniform was the most eye-catching, not to mention the entire team's attractiveness. The audience wasn't just passionate. It was as though they were witnessing the climax of the competition. Their cheers were loud enough to tear the roof off. The number of visits on the platform displayed in the broadcasting room soared to the peak. It was obvious who it was. The most valuable esports player and the most popular FC king. It was enough to create a wave of topics. With the two of them competing, it seemed as though it would always be like this. The trend of the All-Stars couldn't be stopped. Strictly speaking, this was the first time they were playing together since the National League. Hence, it was inevitable that everyone would be excited. Swoosh! The music started playing. She tilted her head, put on her earphones and placed her fingers on the keyboard. The five of them entered the game together. It was the same for Grand Realm. The entire arena was displayed on the huge screen at the same time. The shoutcaster watched the scene. Honestly, Supreme Alliance's progress has exceeded my expectations. I'm sure everyone still remembers when they started the competition, someone predicted on their official Weibo that they wouldn't be able to make it to the National League. For such a team, their captain is missing, their fighting ability has declined, and now, they are eliminated in the semi-finals. Every single time, I felt that this was the team's limit. Who would have thought? The shoutcaster broke into a smile. This is the charm of esports. That's right, we won't know the winner until a real match. While they were talking, on the screen, the players' characters had already loaded up to 90%, and the details of each character's information were displayed. Spade Z chose the assassin. He can control the tempo as an assassin, it isn't a surprise. Wait a minute, Chin Mo didn't choose the team control. The other shoutcaster leaned towards the screen, his eyes widening. It really isn't the team control, why did he choose the assassin? The formation doesn't match. Perhaps it's to protect the newbies, choosing the assassin as a tank is fine. That could be said, but the National League wasn't an ordinary online game. It would be risky to choose such a character. Yan Yixiao seemed to have expected this change. He wasn't shocked, instead, he lifted the corners of his lips. Someone from Grand Realm commented, Chin Mo must have found it troublesome, that's why he chose the assassin. It's good news for us. Keep quiet and focus, the competition is starting. The moment Yan Yixiao finished his sentence, the countdown ended and everyone entered the arena. Grand Realm's members weren't as fast as Bojo. Looking at the game map, a silhouette dashed towards the wilderness. Wherever he went, the grass swayed. Honestly, the director had been following Spade Z at the start. After all, the FC King of Zone C was extremely popular online and the audience would definitely be interested in his maneuvering. But halfway through, he realized that if he didn't use the system's position, he wouldn't be able to catch up with that person's movement speed. Was he trying to tire himself out as a director by running around like that? He turned the camera, aiming at the well-trained Grand Realm. On the game map, the 5 in-game characters were clearly moving around adeptly. Everyone's division of labor was very clear. There was an attacker, a tank, an assassin, and a sorcerer support. Compared to Supreme Alliance, this was a perfect team. On the other hand, Supreme Alliance had split into 2 lanes. Coco was going up alone while Yao Yao, a sorcerer, was attacking the bottom lane with Feng Shang. This, Supreme Alliance's strategy is really strange. Even more baffling was that there was no one in the middle lane. What was going on? It wasn't just the shoutcaster, the audience was confused as well. On the big screen, the characters on both sides were tiny little people. The audience had a bird's eye view, allowing them to see the coordinates of all the players. But because of that, they couldn't understand the strategy. Were they abandoning the middle lane? Besides, the map showed that there were 2 players attacking the middle lane. The fans couldn't wait for their big spade to rush to the middle lane. But the youngster pressed down on the earpiece. I'm taking a blue beast. Everyone. Blue Beast. What a nickname. The shoutcaster hurriedly explained, Spade Z is an assassin and it is important for an assassin to gain experience from killing beasts in the wilderness. Almighty Qin was also fighting in the wilderness. One of them was taking the blue and the other was taking the red. Were they really going to abandon the middle lane? What do you think they are doing? The shoutcaster asked his partner. His partner pondered. Let's watch. They could only watch. This wasn't going according to plan. Look at the bottom lane. The shoutcaster moved his fingers. As the distance between them shortened, the projection on the screen became clearer. Yan Yixiao attacked the bottom lane, leaping out from the wilderness and striking the sorcerer Shui Yao Yao was controlling. The lethality of that strike was not low. Shui Yao Yao's HP dropped by half. Yan Yixiao was cunning. After the attack, he leaped back into the bushes and took a detour back to the tower. He didn't give Shui Yao Yao a chance to react. At the same time, Supreme Alliance realized something. If Shui Yao Yao was the only one on this path, Yan Yixiao would be able to kill a fragile sorcerer like her easily. The reason why Yan Yixiao had retreated after the strike was because Feng Shang was there. From another perspective, this was just the beginning. Yan Yixiao hadn't developed. At the later stages, even with Feng Shang, Shui Yao Yao wouldn't be able to survive. Yan Yixiao had personally come to deal with the two rookies so that they would feel pressured right from the start. This time, Supreme Alliance should be aware of the gap between them. The shoutcaster supported himself with both hands. If this continues, it won't be good. Yan Yixiao's attacks won't stop, and who's going to defend the middle lane? Shui Yao Yao's hands slowed down after the hit. Chapter 8:12. Yan Yixiao. F***CK, Qin Mo, what do you mean? At this moment, the youngster glanced up, her silver hair fluttering in the wind as she smiled devilishly. I can kill him twice. The shoutcasters glanced at each other. He must have said it for Yan Yixiao. Yan Yixiao tried his best to maintain his composure, reminding his opponent, Qin Mo, you are on public speaker. I know, Qin Mo replied casually. Yan Yixiao clenched his fists, gritting his teeth. What do you mean I know? You are doing it on purpose. Why don't you talk to me? The youngster's voice was melodious. Yan Yixiao wanted to smash his mouse. Did he think he didn't dare? The members beside him tried to persuade him. Captain, don't fall for it, they are trying to provoke you. Everyone knows how good Spade Z is as an assassin, it's impossible to kill him alone. Yan Yixiao was the leader after all. He turned his mouse, suppressing his emotions. Continue attacking. Grand Realms members didn't stop. But they had a question in their minds. Wasn't Qin Mo fighting in the jungle? How did he see their captain ambushing them? Unless he had been switching games while he was fighting. That pervert. Mid-lane. Attack. It was a private message from Grand Realm. It was obvious that Supreme Alliance had vacated this area, hence, they had to take it. However, just as they were about to enter the tower, Spade Z cut over from behind, using his second skill to slow them down before launching an attack. It was despicable to attack them at the bottom of the tower. They were experts after all, retreating quickly. They didn't deal much damage. After leaving the tower, one of them fired a long-range cannon. It headed straight for Spade Z. There was a loud bang. Amidst the sparks, the youngster tilted to the left. Just a little bit more and he was almost hit. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. After killing the beasts, Spade Z didn't have much HP left. With this shot, he would definitely die. But it wasn't easy to catch Spade Z in this state. Of course, the two of them wouldn't let go of such a good hunting opportunity. The characteristics of assassins in the early stages of the game were very obvious. They didn't have much attack power, and their HP was low. Moreover, Spade Z didn't have much HP left, so it would be a shame if they didn't chase after him. Without hesitation, the two silhouettes plunged into the wild. In a team battle, there was only one thing that was consistent, and that was to fight with more people. There were two of them, and one of them was a tank. Killing an assassin with half HP would definitely not be a problem. However, there was one thing that the two of them had apparently forgotten. Since he was already at half HP, why did Spade Z still run towards the wilderness instead of directly skimming over the defense tower? The thought of chasing down Spade Z took up a huge part of their minds. Just as he was about to catch up to Spade Z, he sped up to take the first blood. However, at this moment, a man suddenly jumped out from the bushes behind them. It was Chin Mo. He was dressed in silver-white ancient clothes. He went straight for the main DPS and swept his long sword horizontally. Wherever the tip of his sword pointed, the brittle DPS who had 2/3 of his HP immediately dropped to critical health. When the other player reacted, his heart turned cold and he wanted to retreat. But Spade Z, who had been running forward, suddenly turned around. He plunged straight towards them. At this moment, Spade Z was like an assassin who had been enduring for a long time and had finally reached her breaking point. She had never intended to escape. This was the first reaction of the two players from Grand Realm. They had already realized that they had fallen into a trap they hadn't noticed. Spade Z had chosen to take a detour in the wilderness to lure them here. Because there was Chin Mo, who was killing monsters in the wild. But the two of them hadn't communicated beforehand and didn't seem to have planned anything. But, damn it, it was a direct hit. This was the National League. No one would run around blindly. Hence, right from the start, Spade Z's escape route had been meticulous. For example, in this gap, the assassin Yan Yixiao was still dealing with Shui Yaoyao and Feng Shang at the bottom lane while the others were on the top lane, unable to rush over. Spade Z's escape route had caused the two teams to be unable to reinforce each other. This was done intentionally by the other party. But Chin Mo had sensed it too quickly. Without any prior discussion, he had set up an ambush in the bushes and done it silently. The player gritted his teeth and resisted with all his might. He was a tank, trying to buy time for his teammates. As an assassin, there was a tank blocking in front of him. Without a big move, he wouldn't be able to deal much damage. The player from Grand Realm wasn't wrong. They were both professionals after all. With his full HP, it wouldn't be a problem for him to block Chin Mo. But just as he watched the other figure dart past him, heading straight for his teammate, he realized he hadn't been the one holding Chin Mo back. Chin Mo had been the one holding him back in the bushes. Spade Z had been the one holding him back. Spade Z had been the one holding him back. A swift kill. In the eyes of the audience, they were trembling with fear. The escaping player had just activated his escape skill, preparing to rush back to the tower. Just a little bit more. Just as everyone thought he was about to escape, there was a click. The youngster moved the mouse with her right hand, tapping rhythmically. She released her second skill, a blade-like shadow appearing above the opponent's head, slowing him down. Then, with a twist, she pierced the opponent's heart with a high damage. The audience watched the chase on the big screen. Everyone's mouths were agape, their facial expressions magnified and their eyes filled with shock. It was enough to show how exciting the scene was. The first thing they heard was the sound. It was a special effect from the game. It pierced through the heart. KO. Beside the assassin in black, the long-range attacker from Grand Realm collapsed with blood splattering everywhere. The screen was filled with flashes of light. The audience only saw two words: first HP. First kill. Another first kill. Spade Z's fans couldn't help but shout, Zone C, FC King. FC King, FC King. Even the shoutcasters wanted to laugh bitterly. Spade Z, ever since the competition started, he has always been the one to take the FC. Was Spade Z addicted to FC King's kills? Yan Yixiao had just ambushed their player. He immediately started his counterattack. Wait a minute, it's not over, don't forget about Chin Mo. This time, Spade Z's FC King was mainly due to Chin Mo. Chin Mo's maneuvers were perfect to describe Chin Mo's movements. His style was obviously different from the youngsters. His precise attacks, his chiseled handsome face, and his cold aura didn't seem like he was playing a game. Instead, he seemed to be commanding the world. The director cut to Qin Mo's location swiftly. The tank player from Grand Realm was smart, knowing that the two of them weren't that simple. Hence, he hurriedly retreated. As he retreated, he didn't forget to send his teammates his coordinates. It was for the sake of everyone running over to launch a counterattack. No one didn't know how to play such a high-level game. Grand Realm had already started retreating the moment they saw their teammate running towards the jungle. Wherever they went was a blind spot. This meant that they were hiding in the bushes, waiting to capture them. Judging from Qin Mo and Spade Z's momentum, they were indeed charging forward. Who would have expected them to be so cunning, not giving chase? The youngster paused for a moment, retreating back to the tower. Her lips curved upwards, filled with malice. Qin Mo came and went without a trace, even clearing the troops in the middle lane before heading straight for the jungle. His speed was fast. The big screen could only display the match in slow motion, including Spade Z's FC King. Without a specific camera to break down the action, the audience really wouldn't know how the other party died. But this time, Spade Z's fans were worried that their idols would fall for each other's photos. They didn't expect both Almighty Qin and Spade Z to have such strong chemistry and judgment. F***CK. Yan Yixiao was frustrated that he missed. The first kill was crucial to the rhythm of the match. He couldn't allow Supreme Alliance to take the lead. Yan Yixiao changed his mind, gliding over the bushes, heading straight for the rookie at the bottom lane. This time, after killing the beasts, he swung his bat at Shui Yaoyao's head. Shui Yaoyao couldn't react in time and was left with low HP. Fortunately, Feng Shang retreated swiftly, blocking the attack for her. Shui Yaoyao released her freezing skill. If it had been anyone else, they would have been frozen on the spot. However, Yan Yixiao was still Yan Yixiao. After he faked a jump into the grass and dodged the attack, everyone thought he would run away. After all, his HP had dropped. However, Grand Realms ranged DPS through a powerful stun skill at Feng Shang's body. It was obvious Feng Shang couldn't move anymore. It was Yan Yixiao's turn to kill the low HP Shui Yaoyao. He took the chance to jump over Feng Shang, releasing a critical attack straight at Shui Yaoyao. As Shui Yaoyao's character fell, Yan Yixiao retreated. Everyone knew it wasn't easy to chase assassins, especially Yan Yixiao's character which had a fake body. It was impossible to catch up even though he was low on HP. The tower in front hadn't shattered yet, so Feng Shang wasn't in a good position to advance. Spade Z had just taken the first kill, but in less than a minute, Yan Yixiao had caught up to him. The pace of the game was simply too cool. The commotion was so loud that the cameraman's ears were buzzing. Some felt it was a pity. Regardless of Almighty Qin or Big Spade, Yan Yixiao wouldn't have succeeded. It wasn't easy for him to take the first kill. The shoutcasters found it normal. This is the standard of the National League. No matter how hard Shui Yaoyao and Feng Shang work, they still have a fatal flaw. After all, team battles weren't like 1v1 where the individual was strong. It was all about teamwork. Since Yan Yixiao had taken down the first newbie, he would definitely take it a second time. Supreme Alliance had to be careful. But regardless of whether it was Supreme Alliance or Grand Realm, if they were defeated so easily, it would be a sign of their lack of training. But there was one thing. It was the same as the fans' concern. The shoutcasters wanted to know where Spade Z and Qin Mo were. The director knew what the audience wanted to see, hence, he switched the camera to the youngster. That was when they realized he was in Grand Realm's jungle, fighting their beasts. And he wasn't alone. From the audience's perspective, there was another person hiding in the bushes. It was Qin Mo. With Qin Mo's help, Bojiu was able to retrieve the blue quickly. After the beasts fell, the two of them retreated swiftly. Grand Realm's long-range attacker didn't dare to fight them head-on, retreating to the bottom of the tower. Unexpectedly, the two of them didn't seem to notice him, heading straight into the jungle on the right side of the map. At this moment, Yan Yixiao was still recovering in the city. After Qin Mo and Bojiu were done with the blue beasts, they moved on to the red beasts. If one had to describe their actions, they were like bandits, stealing almost all the beasts in the enemy's jungle, leaving nothing behind. One of them had an invisibility effect while the other was good at hiding in the bushes. They came and went without a trace. Yan Yixiao had finally recovered his HP. Just as he was about to kill a red beast to boost his attack, he jumped over and realized the red beast was gone. It wasn't just the red beast, the other beasts were gone as well. Yan Yixiao sent his teammates a message. "I'm fighting in the jungle." His teammates acknowledged. "We left them for Captain." In order for an assassin to become stronger in the later stages, they had to fight beasts in the early stages. Regardless of whether it was a high-level or low-level game, it was a basic strategy. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to fight in the later stages. When Yan Yixiao saw the message, he stilled. "You didn't fight?" "We didn't," his teammates replied innocently. Yan Yixiao paused, gritting his teeth. Spade Z, Qin Mo. F** King Shameless. He had come to their side to steal beasts. Wasn't he afraid of being caught? The youngster wasn't afraid. After hearing Yan Yixiao's voice, Bojiu killed the blue bird on the left side. She wasn't invisible at this moment and could be seen on the map. Yan Yixiao felt that he couldn't use banditry against the youngster anymore. He had only killed one of them. Spade Z had taken drastic measures against him. Yan Yixiao took a deep breath. But right at this moment, the youngster broke into a smile, tilting her head towards the headphones. Her lips parted as she spoke lazily. "Captain Yan, I'll be taking all the beasts on your side. As an assassin, my motto is to take all the beasts and leave them with nothing. Thank you for your generosity." Pfft. The shoutcaster, who had wanted to take advantage of the time difference to take a sip of water, spat it out. It seemed like Qin Mo wasn't the only one with a sharp tongue. Spade Z was the same. Yan Yixiao's heart ached for 3 seconds. Chapter 8:13. Many wanted to know Yan Yixiao's thoughts. Even the members of Grand Realm glanced at each other, not daring to make a sound. After all, with the captain's current state, he would lose his mind if he said another word. "Hey, what's going on? Even the beasts are gone." The shoutcaster wasn't the one who had spoken, but Zhao Sanpang, who had walked over from the safety tunnel. He was still dressed in an eye-catching battle uniform, his eyes sweeping the battle situation on the screen. 1v1 and he's not doing his best. It seems like little Spade isn't as handsome as Brother Pang. Not to mention how eye-catching Zhao Sanpang's figure was, even the people standing beside him were tall and outstanding, especially Beauty Luo's face. They immediately caused a commotion among the audience. "It's Xiangnan. Xiangnan is here too. F***CK, it's the champion team. My almighty Xiao is so handsome." Xiao Jing stood at the front of the team, exuding an aura of authority. Even his side profile was chiseled. It was hard not to notice such a person. At this moment, everyone couldn't help but turn around and look at the incomparably eye-catching team. The director noticed the problem and immediately changed the image to a close-up of Xiangnan's team. Although it was only for a second, in such a big competition, it was already very impressive to be able to take up a second of screen. The shoutcaster noticed it as well. "I never expected Xiangnan to be here." "That's not surprising, they should have just finished their match." "I never expected them to be so quick." As expected, any team that meets Xiangnan is doomed. Yes, but it isn't common for Xiangnan to be out in full force. What do you think they are here for? They are obviously here to watch Qin Mo. In all these years, no other member has been as good as Xiangnan's Captain Xiao. The conversation stirred another wave of excitement. Grand Realm glanced up, lowering his voice. "Captain, it's Xiangnan." Yan Yixiao didn't stop moving. "Xiangnan? Let's show Zhao Sanpang our skills." He had been praising himself in the Alliance group chat all day long, only the heavens knew how much he wanted to slap Qin Mo's face. Little Yan's monster must have been stolen. Zhao Sanpang stared for 2 seconds before bursting into laughter. Who did this? Well done. Beauty Luo lifted her lips into a seductive smile. Who else could it be? It has to be my big spade. My almighty is just that handsome. Restrain yourself, do you hear me? We're here to investigate the enemy, not for you to be a love-struck fool. Your age isn't suitable for little spade. Sis, wake up. With that, Zhao Sanpang turned to look at the layout. Supreme Alliance is in danger, the bottom lane is too weak. What exactly is Qin Mo thinking? Hearing this, Xiao Jing, who had one hand in his pocket, looked up at the game map displayed on the screen, then narrowed his eyes. Then, he shifted his gaze. It was placed on the man wearing headphones and a pure black combat suit. What was Qin Mo thinking? Of course, this kind of gaze would be noticed by the fans. Oh, I can't take it anymore. Even though I'm infatuated with Almighty Qin and Big Spade, don't you think Almighty Xiao always looks at Almighty Qin with such passion? Almighty Xiao only comes when Almighty Qin is around. A love-hate relationship, it's so cool. Chapter 8:14. What's coming? Before the crowd could figure out what Xiao Jing meant, Guyan's eyes lit up. On the screen, Yan Yishao quickly adjusted his strategy and gave his teammates a coordinate. Leave one in the top and middle lanes. The rest of you, follow me. After receiving the order, the players from Grand Realm turned around and left. Their movements were practiced and they walked through the bushes. Their speed was so fast that they could barely be seen on the screen. Shui Yaoyao and Feng Shang weren't aware of the impending danger. Yan Yixiao had already swung his bat down. The audience sucked in a breath of cold air. Was the team about to start? Supreme Alliance's sorcerer newbie definitely won't be able to withstand such an aggressive attack. That was their first reaction. Supreme Alliance's sorcerer will die. Beauty Luo's gaze turned serious. Zhao Sanpang narrowed his eyes. It seems like little Yen has noticed Supreme Alliance's weakness. Such a premeditated attack definitely wasn't done on a whim. The sorcerer added a crowd control and the long-range attacker used a stunning move. Feng Shang and Shui Yaoyao were pinned to the ground. Since Yan Yixiao had no more beasts to kill, he decided to go for the kill. 3 against 2. 2 against 2 newbies. Shui Yaoyao and Feng Shang were being beaten up. It's too late. Beauty Luo frowned, glancing at the screen. As expected, even though Shui Yaoyao wasn't killed immediately, she died after using the freezing skill. She hadn't even used her big move. The good thing was that the skill had been cast quite well. It had directly frozen the 3 opponents outside the tower. It bought some time for the unconscious Feng Shang. But the danger was that Feng Shang didn't have much HP left. Supreme Alliance might lose 2 lives this time. The audience's hearts were in their throats. In the game, every second passed extremely slowly. Was Supreme Alliance really going to be finished? 2 lives were lost in an instant. How were they going to turn the tables? But at this moment, a dagger hung over the heads of the 3 members of Grand Realm. This was. The audience's eyes lit up instantly. There was no mistake. That was Spade Z's mark. When the mark appeared, it meant that Spade Z was nearby. As expected, people saw the 3 frozen people being slowed down by a series of attacks. Then, Spade Z appeared, unleashing a skill straight at the enemy's long-range shooter. With an explosive attack, it wasn't a problem to take down a HP in 2 to 3 seconds. Even if the other party was an expert, he could only take a beating if he was frozen. When he said these words, it was only a matter of a moment. Yan Yixiao swiftly retaliated, wanting to hit Spade Z with his bat. Who knew that this person would be so hard to catch? Like a shadow, his figure flashed again. Did he escape? This time, Yan Yixiao and his teammates learned from their experience and didn't chase after him. However, was there any use in not chasing after him? Just as they retreated, a lone white figure flashed in front of them. His speed was so swift that he came and went without a trace, and it was utterly impossible to guard against him. With a powerful skill, the tip of the sword pointed at both of them, causing their HP to drop. Was there even a need to say who that figure was? There were only a few people in the arena, and they could be counted on one hand. Chapter 8:15. On Grand Realm's side, they had never thought of fighting Qin Mo alone. But this time, they couldn't help it. The sound of sword energy filled the air. The sorcerer from Grand Realm wasn't at full HP, so he was in critical condition in one move. Yan Yixiao had wanted to cover for him. But how? Spade Z appeared at this moment, giving him a big move, forcing him to return to the tower. The two of them were clearly doing it on purpose. KO. When the music started playing, Qin Mo's assassin jumped back. The assassin under Qin Mo's control jumped back. Not only did he kill someone, he also snatched a wild beast from his side. Was he sure he wouldn't dare to leave the tower? Yan Yixiao tightened his grip on the mouse. His score was overtaken. It was a score of 2-3. This round of killing, Yan Yixiao hadn't managed to gain any advantage. Replay, hurry up and replay. That was the most fervent thought of the audience. It had been too fast. Only gamers would be able to tell how Qin Mo had managed to kill someone. The ordinary audience wouldn't be able to tell. Beauty Luo narrowed her eyes and turned towards Xiao Jing. Captain, are you referring to Qin Mo when you say he's here? What else can I do? Xiao Jing asked calmly. Zhao Sanpang interrupted. We thought you were referring to Little Yen, but Qin Mo's move is too shameless. He even took out one of his beasts. If I were Little Yen, I wouldn't be able to tolerate him. What can I do? Leave the tower? Beauty Luo rolled her eyes. Don't forget, my big spade is still there. Zhao Sanpang was also looking at the layout of the game, still finding it shameless. One of them is a jungler while the other is guarding. Isn't that a little too shameless? Why does Little Spade steal Qin Mo's jungler like a loyal puppy? We're from the same team, what's there to snatch? Beauty Luo was speechless. The moment the men on their side saw Qin Mo, they inexplicably ganged up on him. They could only blame Almighty Qin for attracting hatred. But Zhao Sanpang wasn't wrong. When Qin Mo was fighting, there would definitely be a character controlled by the youngster guarding him. Even though he was filled with murderous intent, it was a stark contrast. It was indeed a loyal dog. Don't tell me the two of them used this method to steal all of the enemy's wilderness. Shameless and shameless working together, what a shameless combination. Zhao Sanpang shook his head. I told you to bring Little Spade over as soon as possible, but you wouldn't listen. Look at what he has learned from Qin Mo, he has led him astray. Little Yen must be crying right now. Not necessarily. Beauty Luo glanced down at Shui Yao Yao. For a team battle, a sorcerer dying twice isn't good news. Supreme Alliance might be at a disadvantage in the later stages of the team battle. I hope she can regain her composure and realize that this is the National League. It was obvious who Beauty Luo was referring to. Supreme Alliance lost 2 lives. They were all Shui Yao Yao. Normally, even pro players would be sweating at this moment. Shui Yao Yao was no exception, but the brightness in her eyes didn't diminish. Beauty Luo stilled before breaking into a smile. Supreme Alliance looks impressive this year. Chapter 8:16. Everyone's eyes were on Shui Yao Yao at this moment. Once the team battle started, it wouldn't stop. They didn't care about the tower anymore. Jungle battles were the foundation of the National League. This time, it was time for the team battle. Coco was the support player, standing at the front. Feng Shang was a long-range attacker while Shui Yao Yao was a sorcerer, staying at the back. They stood at the bottom lane's jungle. Spade Z's character had only appeared in Grand Realm's line of sight at the start. After a while, he disappeared. It was obvious that he had turned invisible. This was the time for Yan Yixiao to determine Spade Z's position. Was he on the left, right, or in the middle of the team? A battle between experts was all about strategy and timing. It was to prevent Spade Z from being in the middle of the team. Grand Realm fired a long-range cannon without warning. Beauty Luo narrowed her eyes. Everyone had the same worry. A long-range cannon would take away half of Shui Yaoyao's HP. Fortunately, she tilted to the side, avoiding it. But the cannon still managed to disrupt Supreme Alliance's formation. This time, Yan Yixiao didn't rush out first. Instead, he used a fake body to sneak past them, hiding in the bushes. It was obvious who he was trying to catch. No one could see his actions other than the audience. Grand Realm's long-range attacks didn't stop. It was an obvious strategy, 3 encirclements. They made use of the jungle's ingenuity, firing a cannon to break through the formation before targeting one of the players. There were also 2 players stationed at the outer perimeter, in case Spade Z and Qin Mo suddenly appeared. Supreme Alliance didn't have a tank blocking the front, which wasn't a good strategy. Right now, Yan Yixiao was crouching there to catch them. From the looks of it, Coco, who was at the front, was in the most danger. But in reality, Shui Yaoyao was the one in danger. Once the team battle started, Grand Realm's tank would have terrifying HP regeneration. Both Qin Mo and Bo Jiu would face a terrifying defense if they jumped in at this moment. He was tanky and healed himself. This kind of character was really not suitable for assassins to kill. Spade Z hasn't appeared yet, I'm afraid that's the reason. Qin Mo should be the same. Supreme Alliance is retreating. The audience was so nervous that they wanted to remind Shui Yaoyao to watch her back. But at the same time, they also knew that no matter how loud they shouted, the contestants wearing headphones wouldn't be able to hear anything. As Shui Yaoyao retreated, she was getting closer and closer to Yan Yixiao. Some fans couldn't even bear to watch what happened next. Since there wasn't a knife on Yan Yixiao's head, Little Spade wasn't around. Yan Yixiao knew that his chance had come. With Coco down, this team battle was basically over. Even though 2 of Grand Realm's players were in critical health, so what? None of the 5 of them had died. On the other hand, once Shui Yaoyao, the sorcerer, was killed, the opponent would lose control and Feng Shang would also be killed. Supreme Alliance is probably going to be wiped out, 3 lives, one of which was the newbie mages. The commentator did not want to talk about the result. Because it was too tragic. Chapter 8:17. Everyone watched as the rod was about to land on Shui Yaoyao's head. Their hearts clenched. But at this moment, Shui Yaoyao's freezing technique froze Yan Yixiao in midair. Yan Yixiao's character was still holding the long rod. He was frozen in place. The next moment, an icy rain fell. Rather than saying it was rain, it was more like ice blades. The formation they formed was extremely lethal. Everyone, including Grand Realm, hadn't expected Shui Yaoyao to use this move. Wasn't she a newbie? How would a newbie know there was someone in the bushes? That was a beautiful big move. There weren't many people that could win Beauty Luo's praise. Zhao Sanpang arched a brow. A beautiful coincidence? Beauty Luo glanced at him. Don't underestimate us women, you guys aren't the only ones good at strategic analysis. Girls can do it too. Or are you bored and want to be tortured by me? Zhao Sanpang didn't understand. They were clearly teammates, weren't they? She was so beautiful, wasn't she? Why did she always want to fight and kill? Luolua's fans definitely didn't know her big sister side, it was too scary. But if it wasn't a coincidence, then Supreme Alliance's newbie sorcerer would definitely be amazing. Everyone knew that as a sorcerer, they had to be meticulous in their calculations and sharp senses. It was important to use the right technique to control the opponent at the right time. Just like now. That rookie mage's freeze spell and ice rain spell couldn't be faster or slower by a second. If it was too fast, it wouldn't be able to freeze Yan Yixiao. If it was too slow, Yan Yixia would kill him before he could use his big move. He hadn't expected her to have such a move. In reality, Shui Yaoyao wasn't as calm as she looked on the surface. Her right hand that was holding the mouse was sweaty, and she couldn't help but lick her lips nervously when she was typing. After being beaten twice, she more or less noticed Yan Yixiao's habits. She had specially kept the formation to prevent him from catching her. She hadn't expected it to come in handy. The formation lasted long enough for Yan Yixiao, the assassin, to be severely injured. Fortunately, Yan Yixiao knew how to use a fake body to jump out. It could be said that Yan Yixiao was really worried for himself this time. However, there was one thing that he did not expect at all. The moment he jumped out of the spirit array, a figure appeared in front of him. A silhouette swept past him from his right. He didn't even use his ultimate skill. With a sweep of his sword, Yan Yixiao was unable to escape. The sound effects started playing. KO. Yan Yixiao really wanted to smash his mouse. Qin Mo. Was he purposely here to collect heads? Ah. Of all times, he had chosen this moment to appear. However, it was not over yet. The audience only saw the figure, like a sharp sword, directly sweeping towards the other three people. Chapter 8:18. At this moment, Yan Yixiao wasn't the only one gripping his mouse tightly. Even Xiao Jing, who was standing in the middle of the crowd, narrowed his eyes. Everyone knew that. Once Qin Mo started killing, he wouldn't stop. His 3,000 knife cutting wasn't just for show. If they didn't disrupt his rhythm now. If he was allowed to kill enough people, then even if the three members of Grand Realm worked together, they wouldn't be able to stop him. That was Qin Mo. A presence that all experts feared. But Grand Realm wasn't a pushover. Especially when there was a tank on the other side. With a big move, he gave Qin Mo a close-range damage. Grand Realm's men saw the opportunity and wanted to outflank him. But he had already used his big move. But the person in front of them was gone. On the screen, Qin Mo's right hand moved, the mouse moving the keyboard as he leaped out of the crowd and into the bushes. Grand Realm knew where he was. They were about to surround him. But a symbol appeared above his head. That was Spade Z. Where was he? Grand Realm's tank was still searching. Instinctively, he wanted to turn back. But there was no sign of him. He hadn't appeared. He wasn't in the bushes either. Where exactly was he? At this moment, Qin Mo raised his sword again, using his second skill. He swept past him, stabbing the support before leaping back. Grand Realm's hand speed wasn't slow, but compared to Qin Mo, they were slightly slower. They couldn't catch him at all. Moreover, they didn't have their sorcerer or assassin, they couldn't control Qin Mo. What was more frightening was the dagger hovering above their heads. Spade Z still hadn't appeared. Was he doing this on purpose? Where exactly is he? Grand Realm's long-range shooter felt his scalp go numb. He didn't dare to leave the team because the moment he did, Spade Z would be able to kill him instantly. Retreat. Yan Yixiao wasn't willing, but he had to give the order. But how could she allow them to retreat so easily? She watched as they took a step forward, using her second skill to slow them down. With a twist, she appeared beside the support, her explosive attack leaving him in a critical state. Grand Realm's main focus was on the long-range archer. Moreover, the support was more durable. Even if Spade Z appeared, he wouldn't be able to kill him in a second. Bo Jiu alone wasn't enough to take down an assistant. However, the people from Grand Realm had forgotten. Even if Qin Mo was at critical health, he could still turn the tide in the team battle. Besides, he had Bo Jiu by his side. I waited for the skill to recover, and a second later, I dashed forward. The electric formation slowed me down, and I jumped back. 3 consecutive breaks. But when this line of words appeared on the big screen, the screams from the scene could almost tear the entire roof off. Yan Yixiao loosened his grip on the mouse. He had finally revived, but he had lost the best opportunity to fight. He still couldn't stop him. Qin Mo. If it was before. Make use of this tactic. No matter how powerful Qin Mo was, he wouldn't charge in like that. Firstly, it was because he was playing team control. Secondly, he couldn't take the risk. If he died, it wouldn't just be a blow to Supreme Alliance's tactics, it would also be a psychological blow. But now, he didn't hesitate at all. It was as if this was the real him. Wherever the tip of the sword pointed, not a single trace was left. Was it because of that person's cooperation? Chapter 8:19. Spade Z. He didn't just bring Supreme Alliance an assassin that could launch sneak attacks. Most importantly, with him, Qin Mo would be invincible. If that was the case, Supreme Alliance might be able to go against Xiangnan. Yan Yixiao glanced at the screen, breaking into a smile. There was nothing more exciting than meeting a strong team. Even if he knew the outcome wouldn't be as he had expected, it was worth it. He had to give it his all in this match. Supreme Alliance was strong, but they weren't weak either. Are you ready? Yan Yixiao asked his teammates as he moved his mouse. The other 4 members of Grand Realm moved forward. The real team battle is about to begin. Beauty Luo crossed her arms, arching a brow. Just as she finished her sentence, Grand Realm spread out in a pentagonal formation. It seemed casual, but in reality, it was able to regroup quickly. Besides, this formation was the easiest way to obstruct the assassin's sneak attack. Yan Yixiao had always been known as a commander because he was familiar with all the heroes in the game. He had a clear idea of the formation. With such a formation, it would be very fast if they wanted to take down a person. That was how Coco, who had wanted to retreat after taking down the tower, was caught. As an assassin, Yan Yixiao didn't charge forward this time. Instead, he focused on sneak attacks. The 3 of them went up first with the sorcerer controlling. Coco managed to escape, but not the second. Yan Yixiao leaped out, blocking his path and smashing down with his rod. Coco's HP dropped to critical levels. At this moment, Grand Realm's long-range attack launched a cannon. It was enough to take down Coco. But to everyone's surprise, at this moment, someone used a freezing skill. 3 of them were encircled and frozen on the spot. Then came the ice rain spell. Supreme Alliance's sorcerer is hiding in the bushes. What an unexpected move. But it was obvious that Grand Realm wasn't an easy opponent. With a big move, it interrupted Shui Yaoyao's rain spell and slowed her down. Shui Yaoyao's fingers tightened. She found the right time to use her flash skill to escape the pursuit. At this time, Feng Shang jumped out and attacked the 3 players with a sniper cannon, instantly killing one of them. At first, they thought Supreme Alliance was in a good position. After all, they were the first to kill in the team battle. But no one noticed. At this moment, Yan Yixiao moved in front of Shui Yaoyao and swung his club at her as she tried to return to the city. KO. A screen on Supreme Alliance's side turned gray. This was not as simple as losing a life. But if Shui Yaoyao died, the team battle would go from a 5v5 to a 4v5. Even Feng Shang had killed 1 person. His cannon had even left 2 of them with critical HP. But this kind of exchange was not worth it. With the sorcerers surrounded, how was Supreme Alliance going to fight? Without any control, with Grand Realm's technology, they would be able to attack very quickly. Was Supreme Alliance going to lose? Just when everyone's eyes were looking down, Grand Realm sent out an emergency signal. Yan Yixiao's eyes were piercing with that redness. What was going on? The audience lifted their heads to search for the source of the sound. If they hadn't seen it, they wouldn't have known. But when they saw it, everyone was stunned. Their eyes were reflected in front of the camera, and they were shocked. Chapter 8:20. Spade Z, who shouldn't have appeared anywhere. The young man must have swept over from the bottom lane, with a wave of sieging soldiers behind him. Everyone's attention was on the team battle, and Bojio's character had an invisibility skill. So no one could see Spade Z approaching the city. Just at that moment, Spade Z appeared on the screen. The danger signal from the city made everyone feel threatened. Not to mention that in the very next second, the danger signal was sent out. Qin Mo, dressed in white, had already rushed in with his sword. Both of them possessed extraordinary lethality. The city wouldn't be able to hold on for long under the combined attacks. Yan Yixiao's scalp was numb. He quickly typed on the keyboard, sweat forming on his forehead. All he wanted was to run back as fast as possible. At this time, they really couldn't care less about the team battle. The city was destroyed. This also meant that the entire game would end. Zhao Sanpeng, who was watching from outside the arena, opened his mouth wide enough to stuff his fist in. F***CK, F***CK, that's shameless. Captain, did you see that? Qin Mo had teamed up with Little Spade to steal the city. What happened to the team battle? Little Yen is really going to die of anger this time. Xiao Jing didn't speak. He just looked at the two figures on the screen and his eyes darkened. Strange. Why isn't the captain saying anything? Shouldn't he be discussing the theft of the city with him now? He waited for about a second. Xiao Jing retracted his gaze and said, Qin Mo's 3000 knife cutting isn't out yet. What does that mean? Zhao Sanpeng was confused. At this moment, Yan Yixiao's character reached the edge of the city. But apart from the fact that his character could run very quickly, as for the others, they needed time to return to the city. However, the battered city could not wait that long. Moreover, Qin Mo was standing in front of him. The moment Yan Yixiao used his fake jump, he leaped over Qin Mo and his bat landed on Spade Z, destroying the city. Debris fell. Everyone stopped moving. The tapping sound of the keyboard fell into silence. The word failure swept across all 5 of Grand Realm's computers. The screen went dark. Immediately after, it was the cheers from Supreme Alliance. Lin Feng was the first to jump up. That wasn't all, he even hugged Yunhu beside him. At this time, there was nothing extra. We won, we won. Lin Feng's voice rang in their ears. Yunhu pressed his back with one hand, his gaze bright. Yes, we won. Shui Yaoyao was stunned. She couldn't believe it. Her first reaction was to look at Feng Shang, who was sitting next to her. After the face was stunned for a moment, it immediately bloomed into a bright smile, as if saying, Yao Yao, look, we won. No victory was by chance. If it wasn't for Shui Yaoyao's ultimate that hit the bullseye and slowed down Grand Realm's team members, they would have died. If it wasn't for Feng Shang's timely long-range cannon, if it wasn't for Coco's support. That way, they wouldn't have been able to steal the city so quickly. All his efforts were not wasted. Those days of eating instant noodles and writing advanced mathematics questions. Those who saw Feng Shang lying in front of the computer, so tired that he closed his eyes, still holding the mouse in his hand. Chapter 8:21. The victory of this battle was somewhat unexpected. After all, even the spectators didn't know how they had managed to reach the enemy city. To prevent the audience from getting impatient, the director replayed the scene immediately. It was from Qin Mo's perspective. When everything was slowed down, the audience realized that Qin Mo appeared in a flash. Yan Yixiao, who had been focused on his surroundings, had forgotten how fast Qin Mo's movements were and how hard it was to catch him. That wasn't all, the changing of the map was a blur. Even when Qin Mo was stealing the city, he didn't forget to look at the team battle behind him. If you want to steal a city, then steal a city. Why does Almighty Qin have to switch the game map back and forth? It's making my eyes dizzy, a girl nagged. She didn't expect that the person sitting next to her would answer her. His voice was very pleasant to hear. That's calculating the time difference. Calculating the time difference? The girl searched for the source of the voice, but he had already stood up, standing against the light. His face was clear and handsome, clearly not an ordinary passerby. The most important factor in the success of the attack is the time difference. At this moment, the girl was in a daze, watching as he turned to leave. 3 seconds later, she snapped out of her daze, tugging at her friend. "Hey, I think I saw Almighty Hoshi, he was sitting beside me just now." Her friend shot her a "you're dreaming" look, patting her shoulder with his left hand. "Did you forget to take your medicine today? Is Almighty Hoshi someone you can see so easily? He was even sitting beside you." "Sis, seriously, hallucinations are an illness, you have to treat it." The girl was anxious. "I really saw him." "Sis, that isn't important, what's important is that our big spade won. Working together with Almighty Chin, they are invincible." Her friend propped his chin up, his eyes shining. The attack was so cool. The entire stadium was filled with cheers. Zhao Sanpang was the only one who asked Xiao Jing persistently, "Captain, what exactly did you mean by that?" "It means that Yan Yixiao wasn't able to force Qin Mo to reveal his true abilities." Beauty Luo spoke up for Xiao Jing. Beauty Luo spoke up for Xiao Jing, her gaze deep. "Fatty, do you still remember the first time we faced Qin Mo?" "Of course." Zhao Sanpang gritted his teeth at the thought of a certain someone from 3 years ago. "That was the first time I saw such an arrogant person. He was just a high school graduate and yet, he said he wanted to be the best esports player." Beauty Luo narrowed her eyes. "I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about that match. At that time, the 3 of us, you, me, and Xiao Jing, couldn't stop him. Even if he had a teammate, he wouldn't have lost. We would have lost." Zhao Sanpang paused, then fell silent. Chapter 822. Zhao Sanpang was silent for a few seconds after hearing Beauty Luo's words. Xiao Jing glanced over, his voice calm. "Even if Qin Mo didn't use the 3000 knife cutting, it doesn't mean Yan Yixiao didn't force him to use his true abilities. There is another possibility." With this, he paused, glancing up. "It's hard for him to use that ultimate move now." "Captain, you mean?" Beauty Luo's eyes widened. "But didn't Qin Mo go to America? Aren't the best medical specialists there?" Xiao Jing remained silent. Glancing over, the entire arena was still bustling with activity. Qin Mo, who was standing in the middle, was still as tall as ever. Perhaps, other than his opponent, no one else could see any flaws in his disguise. But that was just a possibility. After removing her earpiece, Bojiu glanced over, her gaze landing on his smooth wrist. Qin Mo's expression was still nonchalant as he met the youngster's gaze with the side of his eyes. That handsome face was a little breathtaking, but there wasn't any difference. Bojiu arched a brow. Was she wrong? Qin Mo didn't give her time to think, reaching out and pulling her forward. He lowered his voice. "Wait for me in the car, there are some things we need to discuss." The commotion continued, but the person was extremely close. He was so close that even though there were many people around, Bojiu couldn't bear to part with him because of his melodious voice. She really wanted to ask the Almighty how he would react if she knocked him unconscious and brought him away. He would probably give her a look when he woke up, allowing her to understand. But that was just a thought. Bojiu knew it wouldn't be easy to bring the Almighty away. If it was after the National League, she might have thought of using a devious method, but that would have to be when the Almighty wasn't looking. But now, something had to be done in advance. 5 minutes. Bojiu's gaze landed on the countdown timer. Then she shifted her gaze back. Almost instantly, a route formed in her mind. The competition venue was a modernized commercial plaza. In this commercial plaza, the outer perimeter of the semicircular fan blades was built into an esports arena. The main building was made of completely transparent dark-colored glass. On the first floor, there was a crowded coffee shop. Extending inwards, high-end cosmetics and all kinds of light luxury products were on this floor. The second to fourth floors were filled with trendy clothing. On the fifth floor, there were a few dessert shops and a cinema. The route in Bojio's mind led to the fifth floor of the commercial Soho building. You seem to be paying extra attention to the time today. Chin Mo glanced at the youngster with a deep gaze. Bojio knew the Almighty wasn't easy to deal with. A psychologist would be able to notice any changes. Hence, it was better to admit it than to avoid it. I'm thinking about how Brother Mo is going to talk to me later, and I instinctively look at the time. It's even more stressful than playing games. Bojio was serious. Is this the legendary feeling of being unable to sit still? Chin Mo glanced at the clean and fair face in front, his brows arched. Bojio, I'm not sure. I have this skill occasionally. Bojio smiled faintly. Chin Mo watched as the reporters walked over. Before he left, he reached out to caress the youngster's head. When he brushed past her, his voice was melodious. Don't worry, I won't make you restless for too long. Your brother Mo can do whatever he likes. Chapter 8:23. At this moment, the other members walked over. Chin Mo retracted his hand, his expression calm. Everyone from Supreme Alliance was going to be interviewed. Some were joined together, and some were separated. Bojio knew it was an opportunity. She glanced to the left. While the Almighty was busy with his exclusive interview and the crowd was in chaos, she retreated while pulling the zipper down. She glanced at the interview and placed the eye-catching jacket on the chair Lin Feng had been sitting on. She casually reached for the cameraman's hooded uniform that was still adjusting the camera. With a twist of her wrist, the uniform landed on her shoulders. She lowered her head and extended her sleeves, pressing down on the brim of the cap with one hand before heading towards the backstage. At this moment, everyone's attention was focused on the interview. None of them noticed her actions. After all, it was as if she had done those actions countless times. The Real Z could use anything at hand as a disguise. This was also the reason why it was so difficult for the police to catch her in the Fifth Avenue. The most difficult part was how to escape from the crowd. After all, Bojio's silver hair was too eye-catching. Even with the uniform as a cover, there was no guarantee that she wouldn't be recognized. Hence, it was a risky move. Bojio tried her best to relax. She hadn't done such things for a long time, but her disguise skills hadn't deteriorated. While she blended in, she lowered her face and reached for her phone with her left hand. She tilted her head in a practiced manner. Where is the thing I want? The moment Bojio made her move, Hoshino stood at the spot with the best view. He had a Bluetooth earpiece in his left ear, his features as clear as a painting. Walk another 100 meters and there will be an air vent on your left. Once you enter, there will be a washroom 300 meters away. It's the men's washroom. There's a package under the second sink on the first row. All right. Bojio didn't waste her time. She kept her phone and walked away, fitting the mood of the nerds who had just finished watching an esports competition. The people around them were still talking about the game that had just happened. The number of times Bojio heard her ID wasn't small. She pressed the brim of her cap down. I never expected Supreme Alliance to be so good this year. Of course, don't forget Spade Z is in there. Boss, do you think Spade Z is the one we played with previously? Nonsense. If it wasn't him, who else could it be? When you go to number 1 middle school in the future, make sure you don't hurt our allies' hands, understand? Bojio lifted her lids. It wasn't until she looked that she realized he was the troublemaker from the neighboring school. That underling was still listening to the scolding next to him. No way, boss. Since ancient times, our number 2 middle school and no 1 middle school have always been incompatible like fire and water. What if we get into a fight and they mistake us for someone else? How could you not recognize his face? The troublemaker finally said something reliable. The underling thought about it and felt that it was indeed a good choice. After all, he was so outstanding. Wait a minute. The person who looked at him just now. Boss, boss. The underling anxiously tugged at the troublesome guy's school uniform. The troublemaker immediately looked back. What's wrong? Is there a beauty? Where? She's not a beauty. Actually, I'm still hesitating whether I've recognized the wrong person. After all, the most handsome guy in number 1 middle school shouldn't be wearing that kind of clothes. The unruly kid glared at him. If you're not a beauty, why did you call me? The lackey shrank back. Nothing. Chapter 8:24. Bojo lifted her lips, walking beside them. After less than 7 seconds, she followed the path Hoshino had given her, heading towards the air vent at the side. The underling wanted to follow, but his boss pulled him back. He was pulled back by his boss. I say, did you just join us? You don't know anything yet. Don't run around. If you get lost, we'll have to look for you. Do you want to eat fries? Hurry up and give us some money. We can even find an excuse to date a beauty. It was no wonder their boss couldn't find a girlfriend. Who would go for fries with a girl? Now, they would all go to Hoshino. No matter how worried this little brother is about that figure, it's of no use. Basically, they were dragged along. If there was anything good about their boss, it would be that he was too Chinibu. He took care of his brothers very well. He didn't even have a chance to follow a suspicious person. Bojo continued moving quickly. 2 out of the 5 minutes had passed. There were less than 3 minutes left. The Supreme Alliance members would realize she hadn't gone for an exclusive interview. Hence, she had to disguise herself well. The washroom that Hoshino had mentioned wasn't usually frequented, but it was different today. After the esports competition, the washrooms at the main venue were full. Hence, a group of people naturally found this washroom. Bojo walked in, sweeping a glance at the 3 figures standing beside the urinal. When she walked towards the sink, she brushed past one of them. It wasn't anyone else but a member of Grand Realm. Fortunately, they had left in a hurry and probably hadn't glanced in her direction. But Bojo was clear that the other 3 were from Grand Realm as they hadn't removed their uniforms. Bojo narrowed her eyes. She lowered the brim of her cap and turned on the tap. Her left hand moved downwards, touching the tape below the sink. There would definitely be a sound if she tore it, but if she didn't, it would be troublesome if the 3 of them saw it first. Bojo reached her fingers out and bent her body. She looked as though she was washing her face. But in reality, her expression had changed the moment she lowered her lids. Her mind was spinning rapidly. The last one was forceful. There was a loud tearing sound. The package fell onto the ground. Bojo's first reaction was to kneel down, muttering, F***ck, his tone was extremely vexed. It was as if he had accidentally dropped something. The people from Grand Realm glanced over, but didn't pay much attention. They emptied their drinks and pulled up their pants. Bojo took advantage of this blind spot and stuffed the bag into her arms. After they left, she stood up and locked the bathroom door. Most of the bathrooms in this kind of place were very high-end. There was a row of sinks with quick-drying machines and hand sanitizer. There were also some coffee bean dregs, so there wouldn't be any odor. Instead, it was very clean. The youngster in the mirror changed clothes very quickly. When she took off her coat, her left hand had already torn open the package. Inside was a uniform of a cinema worker. From what he knew, the suspect who used the software to commit the crime would be watching a movie here in 10 minutes. What Bojo needed to do was to confirm if he had committed the crime without alerting him. The key case investigation unit had locked onto 5 suspects, and today's case seemed to be the most suspicious. Chapter 8:25. Bojo lifted her lids and looked at herself in the mirror. She couldn't take too long to disguise herself. This was the washroom after all. Even if she had hung the cleaning sign on the doorknob when she came in, it was inevitable that someone would knock on the door anxiously. Hence, she had to be quick. Coupled with that head of silver hair and that face, it was too recognizable. She had to change. This time, Bojo didn't choose to wear a wig. Instead, she asked Hoshino to roll a hairspray into her uniform so that it would be easier for her to retreat. After all, she would have to jump and climb walls during the process. Bojo narrowed her eyes and leaned over. She brushed her hair with her left hand and raised the hairspray with her right. The dazzling silver was slowly dyed into a pure black. It was like the reflection of the youngster's eyes in the mirror, deep as jade. At this moment, in the interview venue, no one wanted to move the microphone closer to Chinamo. There were more than 5 media outlets there. Everyone knew what Chinmo's appearance meant. Ratings, reports, headlines. Be it esports or finance. But it was too difficult to get Chinmo to say anything. Even though he didn't show any impatience, he wasn't very enthusiastic either. After all, his family background was there and etiquette was the most important. Hence, just by standing there, he was like a cool breeze and a bright moon. It was a little cold, but it was enough to suppress the crowd. Moreover, Chinmo was wearing his uniform. It was worth it to be able to get 1 or 2 photos. Even though Chinmo replied with a MMH to every single one of their questions, Chinmo didn't seem to care. The media admitted their defeat. After all, young Master Chin rarely appeared in front of the public. It wasn't bad to be able to do this. There were some questions that they didn't dare to ask. But there were newbies among them who didn't know if they dared to ask or not. They asked directly, "Young Master Chin, after the variety show aired, many people became fans of you and your teammates. What do you think about you and Spadesy becoming the most popular esports couple online?" This question came out. All the media went silent. Which family was this bold enough to ask the question that all of them wanted to ask? But those who stayed in Jiang City for a long time knew that young Master Chin didn't like to answer such questions. As expected. The man holding the microphone frowned. The reporters subconsciously retracted their hands. The deep voice rang out with a hint of indifference. "The eyes of the masses are very sharp." When the rest of the team members heard this, they all looked at the ceiling. The captain's answer was basically confirming this matter. The reporters present were all smart people. How could they not understand the meaning behind those words? However, the key point was that this was truly unexpected. The newcomer wanted to ask more questions. Chinmo glanced up at the bodyguard beside him. This action signified the end of the solo session. No one dared to step forward. After all, Chinmo had answered all 5 questions. In a sense, it was time for the interview to end. But it was not enough. Every media outlet wanted to know more about Chinmo. Lin Feng couldn't help but shake his head. These people were really too stupid. If all the questions were about Little Spade, their captain would definitely be willing to answer. "Where is that guy?" Chinmo suddenly stopped in his tracks. Chapter 826. Private Interview. Chinmo's deep eyes swept over the pure black jacket on the chair. Then he reached out to pick it up, a cold glint flashing across his eyes. Would he take off his uniform here for an interview? Lin Feng stilled. That was right, he had to wear his uniform for an interview. Why hadn't he thought of that? But if Little Spade wasn't going for an interview, where did he go? Perhaps he went to the toilet? Chinmo didn't say anything else, but his grip on the black jacket tightened little by little. Then, he strolled to the left. Lin Feng called out, "Captain." Chinmo didn't seem to have any intention of turning back. Lin Feng was confused. Logically speaking, Little Spade had only disappeared for a short while. Why was his captain reacting in such a manner? Wasn't this too abnormal? Was the relationship between his captain and Little Spade so deep that a minute apart felt like 3 years? Abnormal? Actually, Chinmo's reaction wasn't abnormal. Before the competition, he had already sensed something. But he hadn't expected her to be so daring, slipping away right under his nose. If he had known, he would have watched her 24/7. A certain someone's claws just couldn't stay still. Chin Mo was clear that it wasn't a simple disappearance. If she had really left for a short while, it wouldn't have been like this. What exactly was she up to? Chin Mo clenched his fists when he didn't see the familiar figure. He just stood there for a second, allowing the crowd to clamor. In the end, he took out his phone, his voice cold. Where? Young master. The Special Forces soldier, who was hesitating over the cotton candy, gave up on the thought of queuing with the kids after receiving the call. With his height, the little cuties around him had already treated him as a weird uncle. He left the commercial square regretfully, reporting seriously, outside the esports arena, in the middle of the crowd. Chin Mo glanced up, his breathing heavy. Send me the blueprint of the entire commercial square, including the hole in the ceiling. Yes. The Special Forces soldier replied immediately. Young master, are you trying to catch the suspect? Chin Mo paused. Suspect? Young master, have you forgotten that the crime squad is nearby? The soldier was holding an ice cream cone in his hand, and it was hard to tell who he was. I saw a few plain clothes. Chin Mo's eyes dimmed. I didn't forget. Send me the exact location of the suspect. Tell everyone to bring forward the operation. All right. The Special Forces would keep a record of the itinerary. Young Master's original intention was to wait until after the competition and the movie ended before dealing with this matter. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, the magician would approach the suspect first before doing anything else. Now, the operation had actually been brought forward. This really wasn't the young master's style. Could it be that something happened? The SWAT soldier didn't understand. He stuffed the ice cream cone into his mouth and sent a message as he walked. Fishing operation commencing. Keep in touch with the coordinates. Chapter 827. With that, the elite entered the transparent elevator. Just as he was about to press the button with his left hand, a person walked over. Just then, a person came over. He looked very fair and clean, and he was wearing a cinema uniform. He also wore a pair of black glasses on his face, which covered most of his face. The elite didn't take a closer look at the person. He just felt that it was weird for the cinema staff to walk over at this moment. Was he heading down to buy something? The two of them headed to the same floor. When they entered the elevator, Bojio realized that there was something wrong with the person behind her. His disguise wasn't bad. But it was because of his good disguise. That was why Bojio noticed the details. The earpiece was special. Those who didn't know wouldn't be able to tell what it was. But before her rebirth, Bojio had been in the Fifth Avenue dealing with people from all walks of life. If one took a closer look, they would be able to tell that only the military would have such earpieces. However, since when did the military learn to disguise themselves? And in such a professional manner. If she hadn't recognized the earpiece, she would have assumed that he was just an ordinary person watching a movie. Bojio watched the reflection in the elevator. She could feel him looking at her as well. His observation skills made her think of the Almighty. She seemed to have understood something. Bojio arched a brow. She buttoned the last button on her uniform, her gaze dimming. If the Almighty was here, she would have to restrain herself. The suspect would be easy to deal with. The Almighty's subordinates wouldn't be easy. The Almighty's subordinates wouldn't be easy to deal with. Fortunately, they had met here. If they had met in the cinema, she might have been at a disadvantage. Bojio lowered her lids, her lips lifting. She had underestimated the Almighty's ability. She had thought that it was just the crime squad. But now, it seemed like it wasn't just the crime squad. She really didn't know what other people were there besides this elite. What else would the people who had set up the Shadow City be like? She had never fought against the Almighty face to face. This was the first time. The true first time. With such an opponent. The game would be interesting. But the more she admired him, Bojo felt that if she really couldn't control herself and wanted to take the Almighty away one day, it wouldn't just be using her connections. Even the Almighty's subordinates wouldn't be easy to deal with. Bojo reached out to press her sleeves. She mustn't reveal the little thing inside. The elevator reached the 5th floor. She no longer cared about the whereabouts of the people behind her. She only remembered that face. Then, she walked straight to the side of a staff member and said with a smile, "Still a lot of people?" "You." The staff member wanted to say something. Bojo smiled brightly, revealing her canine teeth. "I'm a new employee." The staff also laughed. "Come and take a look." "I'm going to the restroom. There are too many people today. It's going to explode. Please check the tickets carefully." "All right." Bojo turned and stood there. She was still wearing her black gloves. Her uniform and work pass were of high quality. Indeed, there wasn't a single flaw in her attire. There wasn't a problem passing off the fake as the genuine one. Seeing this, the elite man retracted his gaze and stood in front of the ticketing machine. It looked like he was collecting tickets, but he was actually on the phone. "The fish hasn't appeared yet. Wait for further instructions." After finishing this sentence, he took a sip of coffee. His movements were extremely natural, and his technique of blending into the crowd was done very well. Chapter 828. In the meeting room. After Chin Mo received all the blueprints, he scanned them from top to bottom and closed his eyes quietly. Profiling. It wasn't just targeted at criminals. A skilled profiler would be able to come up with various routes based on the environment. And Chin Mo was the best of the best in this field. Perhaps not many people knew about Chin Mo. But his code name was Young Master. Child in English. It was a name that everyone in the international community knew about. If one was in the industry and had read books in this field, he would definitely have read his thesis in an authoritative journal. Profilers were usually very good at science, especially mathematics. Deep mathematics was about logical thinking. Just like the movie Suspect, a problem might seem like a geometry problem, but in reality, it was a function problem. How to solve some problems. Placing oneself in the other party's line of thought would allow one to grasp the point quickly. If it was him, how would he come up with the escape route and be discovered? First of all, he needed to take off this eye-catching set of combat clothes. Lastly, he had to find a dark hooded jacket that wouldn't catch anyone's attention. It was far from the exit and it would affect the time needed to leave. If there was a safe passage in between, Chin Mo opened his eyes. Like a ray of light, his gaze landed on the left side of the meeting room. It was only a few hundred meters long and there was a fork about 100 meters away. It wasn't easy to find a single person in a video with so many people. But if there weren't many people, it wouldn't be too difficult. Chin Mo paced, his footsteps carrying the wind, but there wasn't a hint of panic. His aura was natural. He held his phone in his left hand, not bothering about the commotion on the other end, interrupting Director Huang's excitement. "Get your men over to the surveillance room." Director Huang was excited. "You want to help? That's great. With your ability and our ability, we will definitely succeed." "Oh." Chin Mo's voice was calm. "What do you intend to do? Arrest him?" Director Huang narrowed his eyes. "Of course, that person is too dangerous. He's an AIDS carrier and is constantly looking for new targets to kill. We aren't sure who the next target is and we don't know who leaked the news. Just a moment ago, there was an online report about it. The media has already started an investigation and the higher-ups have ordered us to solve the case within 48 hours. If we don't solve this case, it will be even more difficult for us to deal with the public opinion." After Chin Mo heard that, he only said one sentence. "First, confirm if he is really a criminal. Even if you catch him, without evidence, everything will be in vain." This was what Director Huang was worried about. Without evidence, he could only imprison the other party for 24 hours at most. And if it wasn't this person? If news of their operation were to leak out, they would not be able to survive. It only makes people wary of the real criminals. Director Huang gritted his teeth at the thought. After all, this case was too unique. All the suspects were deduced from Qin Mo's psychological profile. However, they had not found out whether there was anyone among these people, so they could not be sure. There were too many people at the hotel that day, so he could only make a rough judgment based on their height and appearance. There were many loopholes in this judgment. You know, the higher-ups. Director Huang scratched his head. Chapter 829. With Qin Mo's words. Director Huang felt much more confident. Actually, he was under pressure. The higher-ups wanted them to solve it quickly. But the culprit's methods were too skilled and his anti-investigation ability was too strong. After the case, if it hadn't been for Qin Mo's directions, they might still be searching for a needle in a haystack. The crime squad had changed in recent years. Director Huang understood that, but fortunately, his subordinates were hot-blooded. They had sacrificed a lot to maintain the safety of the city. Actually, this was how it was like to be a detective. If they couldn't solve the case, they would be criticized by the citizens. Director Huang had to admit that some of the external staff were used to minimizing the big problem and turning it into nothing. They were used to not doing anything. He couldn't explain the system. But there was still a group of people who would stay in the car for 24 hours just to catch a criminal, afraid that they would miss any clues. And he was the same as that group of people, seeking a clear conscience in this industry. Director Huang placed the pen in his hand down and called his subordinates. They wouldn't arrest him as per Qin Mo's instructions. As for the higher-ups, at most, he would be scolded again. At this moment, Qin Mo didn't go to the surveillance room. Even though he knew that if he went to the surveillance room, he would be able to find out what that guy was disguised as from the clues he had, he still didn't go. Perhaps, this was Qin Mo. There was an invisible police uniform on his body. At such a moment, he could put his emotions behind him and take on all the responsibilities he could. And it was because of Qin Mo. That was why Bojiu wanted to bring him back. This world was too flashy. But there was such a person. He had a clear and cold aura like a jade tree, bright and clear, aloof from the world. He would never be swallowed by the darkness. He was completely different from her. It made her heart itch just by looking at him. But Bojiu didn't have the time to think about Qin Mo now. She had asked Hoshino to prepare for the day purely to get close to the suspect and find evidence while also finding clues about the person impersonating her. She didn't have the intention to leave now since the National League wasn't over. But there were some things she couldn't control. Some people used the excuse of liking her to commit evil deeds, distorting the truth and forcing her to leave early. Bojiu knew that she could settle many things, but she couldn't do anything about human nature. Whether it was the organizers who pretended to be fans or those who were incited, if they did it the first time, it was fine. If they did it the second time, they could say that they were still young. If they did it the third time, they knew what they were doing was hurtful, yet they still said that they were wronged. The existence of these two people was like a small criminal base in today's society. The core of their distorted worldview was selfishness. They didn't like anything but themselves, so they didn't care about ruining other people's hard work. After all, they still had a trick up their sleeves. They could say that they used to be true fans who were forced to become anti-fans, or some groundless scandals. Being despicable was always the pass for the despicable, and this had nothing to do with age. Chapter 830. Lawyer Bai was a clear-minded person, reminding her, with your identity, dealing with them will only give them a reason to accuse you of bullying the weak. Don't forget, you are a member of Supreme Alliance and your actions represent the public. Of course, if you don't deal with them, both you and Supreme Alliance will have to bear the blame since you are professional players. She didn't reply immediately, waiting for Uncle Ian to leave before replying. If I wasn't a professional player, would I be able to deal with them? Supreme Alliance wanted to fight a vigorous esports competition. How could they allow such a group of people to tarnish the competition with so many people's hard work? She wore the combat uniform to win. If some people wanted to hit her with the 1-inch punch, then she would take off the combat uniform and go and clear the obstacles. The suspects were the first to be dealt with because to Bojo, there was nothing more important than a human life. In certain aspects, they were extremely similar. It was hard to imagine that one of them was in the open while the other was in the dark, but they were the same type of people. They wanted to catch criminals. Even though their methods were completely different. Bojo glanced up, glancing at the clock hanging in the middle of the theater. The ticketing began. At this moment, the elite man's earphones rang. He hadn't expected it to be his boss. "Don't go in, pass me the ticket, I'll go." These few words made the elite man stop in his tracks. After rubbing the bridge of his nose, he followed the young master's instructions and turned around, heading for the emergency exit on this floor. After hanging up, the elite male tried to hold it in. He really couldn't hold it in any longer and wanted to find someone to gossip with. "Hey, brothers, what are you guys doing?" "Eating an ice cream cone." "Queuing for fries, what's wrong?" What did he mean by what's wrong? Fatty started arguing. "I'm using my laptop to monitor the internet." "It's so hot, what are you guys doing?" "There's even someone queuing for fries, what the heck?" "Young master told us to be more natural. We just returned and it's only natural for us to blend in. The food in Jiang City isn't bad, it's much better than in America." "Shut up." Fatty was sweating profusely from the heat, taking over the surveillance room. What they wanted to see was who else would follow them other than the key case investigation unit. As for the matter of returning, Fatty only found out about it today. On the surface, he had always been an external member of Supreme Alliance. In fact, he was by the young master's side, and his role was to contact the outside world. "I say, stop arguing." The elite tugged on his tie. "Everyone, tell me, why did young master suddenly want to move on his own? Look at how awesome my outfit is." The SWAT soldier tossed the cotton candy stick away and climbed up to the roof. "Because you can't get the evidence out of him, only young master can do it." The person in line put a fry in his mouth. "I'm fine. Those people from the Major Crimes Division might have alerted the big fish behind the small fish. It's not strange that young master would make a move. I don't think it's that simple." The elite man rubbed his chin, determined to get to the bottom of the gossip. "Didn't Fatty say that young master has a crush on a guy? Does that guy not like young master? Young master must have suffered a blow, that's why he became like this." Chapter 831. Through the earpiece, the voice managed to reach everyone's ears. Fatty immediately pretended not to hear anything. He kept quiet and started to encourage his friends. The other two were lying on the ground like corpses. That was awkward. They were gossiping about their boss being caught behind their backs. The elite's scalp turned numb. He turned around and saw the elegant and handsome face. Somehow, he felt touched. It had been a long time since he had seen his boss alive. "Young master, I'm definitely concerned about you." The elite tried to explain himself. Chin Mo arched a brow. He didn't waste any time and took action. "Thank you for your concern." The elite watched as his boss robbed him of his jacket, gold-rimmed glasses, and his handbag. He didn't even leave a watch for him. In the end, he was left with a pair of long johns and a shirt. As a magician, he had never been in such dire straits. Compared to his boss, who was full of charisma, he looked like he had just been robbed. "Wait a minute, young master, at least leave me a wallet." Chin Mo naturally wouldn't stop. He even changed his hairstyle. His usually loose black hair was combed to the back of his head. There was a scar on his face and he looked cold and restrained. At this moment, Fatty sent a message. The suspect has arrived from the surveillance cameras. They are now checking the tickets. Chin Mo tossed his handbag to the elite. His left hand pressed on his earpiece and tucked it into his black hair. This was the perfect disguise. The elite hugged himself at the side. He couldn't help but ask, "Young master, you clearly know that the person who appeared this time is a fake C. Why did you get the crime squad to investigate this case?" "Because the fake one is more dangerous than the real one." Chin Mo's voice was calm but his gaze was deep. "Z wouldn't do that." "What do you mean by that?" The elite wanted to know what his boss was thinking. Chin Mo stopped in his tracks. "Do you think the person I treat as my opponent would make use of others to do things? Z has always been a lone wolf. Not harming people's lives is her principle. From the maiden's sacrifice to the AIDS case, every time Z went against the police, it was always because there was an inside story behind the case. These two cases were just people using others to commit crimes. The essence is different. If that's the case, why didn't you tell Director Huang that it's fake? Director Huang might really think Z is the one behind the operation." The elite was impressed by Z since they hadn't been able to capture her in the past. Chin Mo raised his hand to adjust his collar, looking at his completely different appearance and aura through the window, his gaze as deep as the night. "Because I want to know who the real Z is." The elite man was shocked when he heard this. Young master had cast such a big net. Other than catching the fake Z. So there was such a layer of thinking? Chin Mo glanced at his movie tickets. If Z is really around, she wouldn't allow anyone to use her name to do such a thing. The elite frowned. Was it an illusion? He felt that the young master's interest in Z hadn't decreased after losing a certain part of his memory. Why was that? 2 years ago, this kind of thinking had clearly faded a lot. What was going on this year? The elite man had a feeling that his return this time. Something big would happen. But if he could meet Z again. Chapter 832. At the ticket counter, the black-haired youngster lifted the corners of her lips. It was a professional smile. Even the black gloves she was wearing suited the environment. "Sir, please show me your ticket." Even Fatty, who was watching the surveillance, couldn't recognize who that person was. Firstly, it was because of the change in hair color, and secondly, the black-framed spectacles. Moreover, the ticket counter was much fatter than Bojio's usual figure. He wouldn't be able to recognize her unless he scrutinized the details. Besides, Fatty's attention was on the suspect. Naturally, he wouldn't be paying attention to anything else. Hence, he didn't notice the glint in the eyes of the ticket counter, who had his back facing the suspect. The man in front of him fit the Almighty's profile analysis perfectly. He was not very old, about 30 years old, less than 1.8 meters tall. Although his appearance was not very outstanding, it could be said that he was well-defined, very tasteful. He wore a watch that cost about 100,000 yuan on his hand. His hair was styled with something, which made him look like a successful person. In addition, this person was wearing cologne, which made him look clean and particular. Indeed, such a person would be able to ease the grudges of the girls nowadays. It would probably be easy to ask someone out. But she still needed evidence. When she was checking the tickets, she glanced at his ticket stub before passing it back. "I hope you enjoy your movie." The man wasn't bothered by the ticket counter. He held the ticket in one hand and his phone in the other. On the screen of the phone, a chat app was opened. Bojio didn't see the content. But would such a man come to watch a movie on his own? What's more, he was holding a Swarovski box in his hand. Bojio glanced over and told another ticket counter, "I'm going to the toilet." Ah. His colleague was confused. But the youngster was walking too quickly and was in the crowd. Helpless, he continued to check the tickets. Fatty wasn't sensitive about such things. Besides, it was normal to change the ticket counter at the last minute in a movie theater. He glanced up and landed on the suspect. Young master, after he deposited the item, he went inside. I can't see him from here. Got it. Chin Mo's voice came through the earpiece, carrying a different magnetism. I'm checking the tickets. Fatty was stunned. He looked at the figure in the queue on the screen and almost jumped up. Why was his young master dressed like that? It was really unexpected. This bad thing had too much flavor. From a god to a devil. Send me the surveillance footage of the suspect when he was checking the tickets. Also, find out which of the 5 exits of the cinema is a blind spot. Magician, head there. If you see the person loitering there, follow him. The elite man looked at his long johns. No, young master, are you going to let me pass like this? 10 minutes is enough for you to get a set of clothes. Chin Mo lowered his lids, handing the ticket over to the ticket collector. The girl was inexplicably shocked. She thought to herself that there were really a lot of handsome guys who came to watch movies alone nowadays. At this moment, Bojio moved an unused 3D glasses box over and placed it on the bar counter beside the luggage box. She tried to wipe the lenses of the glasses, occasionally saying, "Customers watching the 6:50 p.m. movie, please head inside, Hall 7. Chapter 833. Once she was clear of all the surveillance angles, Bojio discreetly shifted the 3D glasses case upwards. The angle it blocked was coincidentally the suspect's storage cabinet. Once she was done, Bojio narrowed her eyes. There wasn't enough time for her to get the password. If she pulled it forcefully, the alarm system would be triggered. Why not let someone else open it? Bojio arched a brow and broke a pair of glasses. The 3D glasses broke the alarm system on the cupboard. Then she stood up and walked towards the manager like a competent staff member. Manager, there's a problem with the storage cupboard. The manager followed her immediately. He took a look at the storage cabinet. There was indeed something wrong. In such a situation, they could only reboot it and restore the password. That would take some time. At this moment, the movie was about to start. Chin Mo walked along the darkened tunnel, glancing at the faint light coming from his seat. He stopped, his voice calm. Excuse me. This sentence was directed at the 2 best friends behind the suspect. Chin Mo didn't even glance at them. He was just like an ordinary audience member. The best friend retracted her legs. The girl couldn't help but exclaim, "So handsome." The suspect turned back to glance at Chin Mo. Some men would compare themselves with others. After seeing Chin Mo, the suspect sized him up from head to toe. Other than being taller, he didn't have any good points. His aura wasn't bad, but it was a pity he had a scar on his face. But as long as he had money, it wouldn't stop women from pouncing on him. The man hid in the darkness, his lips curved into a mocking smile. Chin Mo sat down indifferently. Actually, this seat was a little too narrow for him. It was difficult for him to stretch his long legs. But even so, he didn't reveal any discomfort on his face. This was the only way he could see the actions of the person in front of him. The seat beside the suspect was good. But it couldn't be compared to the seat behind him. In such a small theater, the space in between was extremely small. People were used to using their right hand to look at their phones. Moreover, the theater was pitch black. Whenever there was a light, the front row would be able to see the back row clearly. Hence, even though Rao Rong had entered the theater long ago, he hadn't expected the suspect to be sitting in that position. But Rao Rong wasn't stupid. If he had known that the major crime squad would be involved. Of course, he had taken precautions. According to their deduction, the people on both sides of the man were most likely from the crime squad. Hence, Rao Rong sat far away from the man at the exit of the theater. Even if he wanted to contact him, he would use his virtual IP. This was to prevent the people from the key case investigation unit from targeting the man. At the same time, he could also help the man escape. If he felt that something was wrong, he would ask the man to stop the appointment immediately. After all, from this position, he could observe everyone who came in. However, from the moment he came in until now, everything was normal. Even the man's front, back, left and right. That person had just checked on the computer, and everything was fine. They were all here to watch the movie. Some are lovers, some are friends. The background was also very clean. However, just to be safe, he still had to wait for the news. Only then would Rao Rong do what he was about to do. The moment the movie started, a series of crackling sounds came from his Bluetooth earpiece. On the other end of his Bluetooth headset, there was a crackling sound. Finally, as if he had hit the enter key, countless images appeared before his eyes. Other than the surveillance cameras, the rest of the people from the Major Crimes Division are all at the main exits, waiting to arrest the suspect. If they want to arrest someone, let them. Once they arrest someone, they can just let them cry out in grievance. The police have already formed a fixed pattern. They are either watching the surveillance or blocking the exits. Rao Rong chuckled, still handsome. He lowered his voice so low that no one could hear him. They definitely haven't played hero before. They wouldn't even know how to form a team to catch someone. They have to learn. You chose to take action today to avoid Chin Mo, didn't you? Now isn't the time to go against him. The person in front of the computer had a calm expression on his face. The best way to defeat them is to destroy their hearts. For someone like Chin Mo, no matter how smart he is, he has to abide by his so-called principles. Anyone's life can be a threat to him, not to mention those who are important to him. This can be our breakthrough point. After all, in this society, there are many people who can say that they are wronged after being forced into a corner. That young Master Fu should have experienced this pain. The Wu family did a good job, pretending to be a fan, first infringing on the rights of others before making a fuss. In the end, she took the opportunity to bite back. It's a pity she's already in prison, otherwise, we would be able to find out more about the police's movements. But it doesn't matter, what's happening now is just child's play. When the time comes, Chin Mo will know that the human heart isn't as strong as he thinks. It's easy to break. Rao Rong listened to the words in the earpiece, glancing up at the booking notification on his phone. 30 minutes later, the sky turned dark. Someone took the bait. Look at our harvesters, they seem to be addicted to it. Go, I will keep an eye on the people from the Key Case Investigation Unit. Tell him not to drive the car in B2, there are people guarding it. Go to B3, a dark black Honda SUV. Tell him that the car key is in the Swarovski package he bought. Remember, don't touch it, use your cell phone to inform him of any news. Rao Rong leaned back, his gaze heavy. I understand. If it's just the people from the crime squad, even if they leave, they probably won't notice. Every plot is within my expectations, but I'm afraid Chin Mo will ask for a last-minute adjustment. But he probably doesn't have the time now. So what if they won the competition? The impact of Wu Zhen's actions will still be felt. Rao Rong, don't belittle those high schoolers who feel wronged after taking advantage of others. Using the words true love as a prelude to distort the truth, it won't be easy to deal with them. This will help our plan and divert Chin Mo's attention. Chin Mo won't be able to leave anytime soon unless he doesn't care about Supreme Alliance's reputation. Rao Rong replied faintly, that's why I hate being a professional player. After this incident, Chin Mo will probably hate it as well. There are too many liars in this world, some even taking other people's glory as their own, accusing others after stealing something. It isn't because they are young, but because they have no bottom line. That's what you want Chin Mo to know. There are many people who can't be saved and yet, you have to watch them gloat because they didn't kill anyone. It was just a small crime. But the lethality of these small crimes isn't any less than a stab. The person in front of the computer stopped typing. Rao Rong, are you blaming me? I wasn't involved in Wu Zhen's incident. I've said it before, I don't have to do anything. Stealing someone else's thing makes them a criminal. Was I the one who asked them to steal? Rao Rong, Rao Rong, that's what they wanted to do. Those who didn't want to do it wouldn't have joined them. I'm just a bystander. But thanks to them, the maiden's sacrifice can be restarted because I found a new target. She's injured and weak, one touch and she'll probably break. Look at how painful it is to live, I'll go and console her. Rao Rong didn't want to discuss this topic anymore, he was already numb. Before he had returned, he had seen the youngster's interview. He guessed that Spade Z must have been comforting herself. There wasn't any justice in this world, it was a pity that Rao Rong was wrong. Regardless of whether it was Bojiao or Qin Mo, they would always know what was most important. Their hearts wouldn't change, they would be able to hold a long sword and slay the evil dragon no matter what happened. The other party wouldn't have expected it. She thought she understood them well. But in reality, it was just the tip of the iceberg. Even her reactions were within Qin Mo's calculations. Any criminal's style would be reflected in the incident itself. Qin Mo had allowed his subordinates to return because he had already profiled the criminal's psychology. He was familiar with the crime squad style. He had even purposely left some traces. He wanted others to think that she was Z. But the other party had forgotten. Doing good deeds might not reflect a person's inner thoughts. But evil deeds would definitely reveal their true intentions. Z's uniqueness. Not everyone could imitate her. But there was one person. Qin Mo's eyes dimmed, his fingers caressing the ticket. It didn't seem logical. At this moment, his phone rang. It was the surveillance video that Fatty had sent him. Qin Mo's gaze deepened with the appearance of the suspect. In the end, he fixed his gaze on his right hand. Stop at 50 seconds, take a screenshot. Fatty immediately sent a photo over. Qin Mo zoomed in and typed a few words in the group chat. He came with something. Magician, check the packaging you Hong Liang placed in the locker. No problem. Magician had already changed into a trendy hip style, completely different from his elite male outfit. It was easy to get another movie ticket. He went straight to the counter and bought the one before the start. Anyway, young master was already in the broadcasting room. He didn't have to watch any movies. He just had to find a way to pry open the locker. After Magician was done checking the tickets, he tugged at his collar, stepped on the soft carpet and strolled towards the lockers. He hadn't expected the ticket inspector to be so rash. He hadn't even looked in front of him when he walked over, almost knocking into him. Fortunately, he reacted quickly, turning his body to avoid being hit by the 3D glasses in the inspector's hands. I'm sorry, sir, I didn't bump into you, did I? The inspector looked anxious, wearing black-rimmed glasses. He looked like the type that was usually dumb. Magician didn't mind, shaking his head. Oh, a new employee. It was indeed easy to make mistakes. This was the third time he had seen the inspector today. Poor kid, he hadn't met a boss like young master. If young master were to teach him a lesson, he would be able to change his reckless behavior in minutes. It's okay, you can go. With that, Magician continued towards his destination. Unbeknownst to him, the inspector behind him lifted the 3D glasses basket, the corners of his lips lifted, looking devilishly handsome. He wasn't dumb at all. Instead, he had obtained another piece of information. It turned out that the Almighty had subordinates that knew how to disguise themselves. That explained why the Almighty had always been suspicious of her. But from the looks of it, she was still one step ahead of the Almighty. At the very least, she had gotten the item first. Bojiao swept a glance over the box buried under the 3D glasses basket, walking out of the viewing area naturally. In the corridor, Bojiao placed the glasses basket down, tugging on her jacket. With one hand holding the box, she didn't forget to remove her uniform, throwing it into the bin at the side. In the blink of an eye, she seemed to have changed into a different person. Her black hair was tied up with a headband, revealing her exquisite features. Her white shirt had its tie removed and she wore a rivet bracelet on her wrist, giving off an arrogant vibe. It had been a long time since she dressed up like this. Bojiao glanced at herself through the window, whistling before opening the bag. There wasn't anything strange about the Swarovski accessories. The strange thing was, there was a Honda car key inside. Bojo arched a brow, dialing a familiar number. Hoshino, what car did he drive when he arrived? A BMW X1. Hoshino's gaze deepened. Other than the crime squad, there are other people around you. There's a special forces soldier at the entrance of the 5th floor. Bojo smiled faintly. You noticed that? All right, I know where to go. Where's the ventilation on the 5th floor? Leave the suspect to the major crimes unit. It's time to catch the mastermind behind this. All right. Hoshino was still swiping the tablet casually when he frowned, his voice fading. There's someone on the ceiling. Bojo paused, glancing up, her voice deep. Help me check where Chin-mo is now. Hoshino placed the tablet down. There's no news, he's the one trying to catch you. He's starting to suspect you and knows your route. Chapter 834. All right. Hoshino stood up, still holding onto his phone. According to your location, there are 2 paths you can take. 1. Retreat now. 2. There will be a Boonie Bears cosplay in 3 minutes. There will be a lot of people and I believe you have a way to blend into the crowd. Bojo kept her car keys, stuffing one hand into her pocket and smiling mischievously. I need a girlfriend. It's a pity I'm not. Hoshino slid his fingers, already used to her way of speaking. Bojo scanned the surroundings. It's weird for someone as handsome as me to watch a movie alone. I don't have a girlfriend, it will only give people the impression that I'm not alone. With that, she hung up the phone and walked into the crowd. She took out her wallet and asked the cashier at the counter, do you have a bucket of popcorn? There are 2 of us. Hello sir, if there are 2 of you, it would be more suitable to buy a set meal for 2. Other than the popcorn, there are also 2 cups of Coke. The staff at the theater had always been nice. Bojo smiled faintly. Then I'll take the set meal for 2. All right. Enjoy your movie. The cashier passed the items to Bojo with a smile. Bojo walked to the resting area with the popcorn placed in front of her face and 2 cups of Coke. She looked like a rich second generation waiting for his girlfriend. There were some girls who couldn't help looking over but they wouldn't realize it was Spadesy. With the headband and bracelet, as well as that different expression, it was indeed hard to recognize her. But no matter how perfect the disguise was, it couldn't fool familiar people. Especially Chin-mo, who liked to pay attention to the details. The surveillance footage was about to end. The suspect's image was coming to an end. Fatty was about to cut off the transmission. Chin-mo suddenly typed, send me the contents of the first 3 seconds as well. The first 3 seconds? Fatty bit the cable of the earpiece and sent another part of the surveillance footage over. Is there any difference? Chin-mo didn't answer his question, instead, he sent a few words. Slow down a little more, stop. Stop. Fatty looked at the ticket inspector who appeared on the monitor. He didn't understand what his young master was looking at. Chin-mo narrowed his eyes. It was as though a black mist was being emitted from his eyes, sending chills down one's spine. His fingertips pressed on the words. Look for the ticketing staff, there's something wrong with him. Something's wrong? Fatty could not tell. His uniform is still there. What's wrong? Chin-mo replied quickly, there are so many people at the ticket check-in. Normal ticketing staff would be looking down at the tickets and checking the tickets as soon as possible. They wouldn't bother to look at the appearance of a person who came to watch the movie. This person has been sizing you Hong Liang up for too long, 10 seconds. He isn't simple. When Fatty heard that, he looked at the surveillance footage again and found it strange. Is it the big fish behind this? No. Chin-mo's gaze was cold. Through the phone screen, Fatty could not see the chill in his boss' eyes. It's not the big fish behind us? What's that? The boy you are talking about, the boy I like. Chin Mo replied in the group chat. Magician almost fainted when he saw it. The other three didn't dare to speak. The air in the earpiece seemed to have frozen. Fatty suddenly looked up and widened his eyes. The boy boss likes? Chapter 835. Fatty was confused. Even if he managed to react, he didn't dare to ask. How was he supposed to ask? What was Little Spade doing? Who would wear a ticket inspector's uniform for no reason? He was obviously hiding something. But Fatty felt that his boss must have seen wrongly. The person in front of him was a size fatter than Little Spade. Fatty hesitated for a moment before speaking up. Young master, did you get the wrong person? This time, Chin Mo didn't type. He turned his head and lowered his voice, enunciating each word coldly. What did I get wrong, the boy I like? His earpiece turned cold again. Magician's feet slipped. He had been wondering why young master was acting so strangely today. So he had been abandoned. Fatty was also a blind man. He asked so many questions, but why didn't he get to the main point? For example, why did the person who abandoned the young master appear here? Wait a minute. Ticket inspector? Magician abruptly stopped in his tracks and subconsciously turned around to look for the bespectacled ticketing attendant that he had bumped into earlier. However, the attendant was long gone. His fingers pressed on his earphones. I just ran into him, he was near the locker. Chin Mo's fingers moved slightly. Magician, go downstairs and bring Aardwolf up. Go downstairs? But the thing. Magician didn't understand why young master had suddenly changed his mind. Before he could finish, he saw another sentence appear in the group chat. The things in the cabinet are gone. Gone? Magician's eyes widened. Young master, you mean, the ticket inspector. What the heck, wasn't that the boy you liked? Why was he stealing from us? He didn't dare to ask the last sentence, leaving it regretfully. Chin Mo didn't let Magician continue looking. It was simple. Since the two of them had met, Magician's current appearance should have been exposed too. It was better to leave it at the exit. Even if that fellow climbed out from the ceiling, he would shrink back when he saw a familiar face. Chin Mo hung up the phone. His eyes were so cold that no one could feel any warmth. Ticket inspector? It was fortunate that she had planned it so thoroughly. She had been acting so well. Had she been trying to escape from the start? Chin Mo had always been someone who had difficulty sensing the emotions around him. It had been since he was young. He had always been able to suppress his emotions. But even so, there was also a hint of confusion in his eyes. He sat there as if he was alone. He clenched his fingers, like a pine tree in a green mountain. What he cared about was never that guy's restless habits. Where did the ticket inspector uniform come from? How did that guy avoid the crowd and sneak into the theater one step ahead of them? During the race, was that guy looking at the route or someone? These thoughts flashed through Chin Mo's mind. In the end, they were all swallowed back into his throat, as if they were cut by a knife. But Chin Mo was still Chin Mo. Even so, his gaze was still fixed on the phone in Yu Hongliang's right hand until it vibrated. Chapter 836. Yu Hongliang's eyes lit up when he saw the message. He took a sip of his iced coffee, as though that was the only way to suppress the uncontrollable excitement in his heart. The first time he did something like infecting others, he was still afraid. But the second time, he tasted incomparable joy. There were so many people in this world who deserved to die. Why was he the only victim? If it wasn't for the vanity of some women, he wouldn't have contracted this damned disease. Yu Hongliang, the young master of the Yu family, liked to play on a daily basis and was often seen at night. He had originally thought that he would have to stay at home, unable to even leave. Fortunately, God was on his side, opening another window for him. That person was right. Since he was going to leave, he might as well drag these bad women to hell with him. They would cling on to him the moment they saw money. Then he would make them suffer. The closer they got, the better. Wasn't it just money? This amount of money was enough to buy their lives. Yu Hongliang caressed his watch, his eyes burning with bloodlust. He seemed to have lost his humanity. How could such a person notice the Almighty behind him? Qin Mo didn't change, his side profile calm, as though he wouldn't be surprised by any news he heard. Even at this moment, his mind and memory were still terrifying. After sending the message to the group chat, he typed a few more words. Other than Yu Hongliang, there is someone else here. Fatty immediately replied, row 7, number 06. I'll go check now. Qin Mo wasn't in a good mood. His sharp tongue was on full display. Do you think criminals are stupid enough to write their location on a text message? Do you think it's a game of hide and seek between primary school students? MMH? Qin Mo's MMH sent chills down his spine. Fatty choked for a moment. He finally understood Little Spade's influence on Boss. It couldn't be seen on the surface. It was all hidden in his heart. In the cinema, Qin Mo lifted his lids, taking 2 glances at the cinema. He had an answer in his heart. Row 7, number 06 is a trap, the outermost on the right, from the 1st to the 15th row. Mark the location according to the serial number and give me a list. Yes. After listening to Qin Mo's explanation, Fatty came to a sudden realization. From the beginning of the case, the other party was best at escaping. Moreover, his plan was meticulous and he wouldn't make any mistakes at the crucial moment. Indeed, there should be something in row 706, but even if there was something, it didn't mean that the person was there. It could even be said to be more serious. This could very well be a trap set by the other party. He purposely gave a number for them to check. Once it was investigated, they would receive the news. After receiving the news, that melon kid Yu Hongliang didn't make a move. They wouldn't even be able to get a fish on this trip. After all, the other party still had a hacker. Even though it was a fake. But this impersonator's level was really not much different from Z. They had to be on guard. At this moment, it was time to see who could keep their composure. Qin Mo was indeed nonchalant. Other than grabbing a certain someone and breaking her claws, he didn't care. However, even through the phone, Fatty could feel his boss's heart. Otherwise, the question, how long until the movie is over, really didn't sound like something the young master, who had always been indifferent, would say. Little Spade, oh Little Spade. Don't let young master catch you. Chapter 837. At this moment, Bojiu was observing her surroundings. When she saw Magician coming down the stairs. Then she stood up. Fatty wouldn't be able to guess that she was Little Spade even if she was caught by the surveillance cameras. After all, no single person would be carrying 2 cups of Coke. Bojiu stood among the cosplay bears, her brows arched as she bit the Coke. She looked arrogant and handsome, like a hot-blooded high school's boss. Her entire body was filled with 4 words, rich and willful. She looked like she was waiting for her girlfriend, her posture a little unhappy. Once or twice, the surveillance cameras scanned her, but she was ignored by Fatty. It wasn't that he didn't care, he just couldn't tell. After all, Fatty wasn't Almighty Qin. On the 3rd time, Bojiu followed the crowd into the elevator. She wasn't sure where the Almighty was. Was he going to catch her when she was about to run away like last time? Even though Hoshino had told her that there was no one at the ceiling, she hadn't taken that route. Besides, she hadn't finished what she wanted to do. Bojiu arched a brow, stuffing a hand into her pocket. When the elevator stopped, she walked out. Since she couldn't touch her computer, she would find a temporary replacement. In a large shopping mall, on the exclusive floor of a high-end computer. There was an alien's mechanical keyboard. There was a huge screen in the middle, broadcasting the National League's game in high definition. Bojo stood there, watching intently for a while. Then she made a comment that was pertinent to her. Supreme Alliance is really cool. The staff walked over with a smile. Sir, you seem to be a gaming fan, you should be familiar with our brand. Bojo, who had touched many brands of electronic products, replied humbly, it's all right, that's all. How about this, we have a trial machine here, do you want to try out the keyboard and the smoothness of the graphics? The staff was good at marketing. Bojo laughed arrogantly. If I say I'm a professional player in the video, can I try it for another 10 minutes? The staff gave her a, you sure know how to joke, expression. Sir, all of our computers are connected to the internet, you can try it for half an hour until you find a computer you like. Even if you aren't a professional player, you can still try it. The price will still be discounted. In other words, she wasn't pretending to be a professional player, she was just buying something. All right. Bojo thought to herself that she wasn't lying this time. Unfortunately, no one believed her. Before she tried it out, she praised herself. This first kill was beautiful. The staff watched as the customer continued to stare at Spade Z's ID, agreeing with her. Indeed, such smooth movements aren't something anyone can achieve. Good taste. Bojo reached out and patted his shoulder. The shop assistant who was suddenly patted on the shoulder was dumbfounded. This allowed her to fight for a more suitable trial computer. According to the shop assistant, since this person liked Spade Z so much, he would definitely buy the computer series for the Supreme Alliance. This machine has a hard keyboard with fast keystrokes. The graphics card has been upgraded. Don't be fooled by its clumsy appearance. The kernel is very fast. Bojo tapped the keyboard with her index finger and smiled. I'll use this one. He could send the information to the Key Case Investigation Unit without leaving any traces. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.